You are listening to Mind Over Me, the mental wellness podcast with me, Scott Carter. I am a licensed therapist and someone who is very mindful and aware of the decline in our collective mental health. I created this podcast so that we could have more direct and honest conversations about difficult topics and difficult issues. It's my goal to have honest but direct conversations that we need to have that are necessary. It's also my goal to give my listeners the information that they need in order to find their own mental health and mental wellness. This is where you will find the information that you need to be your own healer. And of course, all of this is based on years of clinical experience and expertise. Thank you for being here. Let's dive right in. All right, everybody, welcome back to Mind Over Me. In this episode, I want to talk about. This is a hotly debated topic online. I come across videos on it all the time. It has to do with adults who are basically cutting off their parents, discontinuing the relationship with them, discontinuing to have contact with them. Again, very hotly debated issue. There are people on both sides of it. And I'm fairly opinionated about it, actually. I do a lot of work with kids, teenagers, family therapy. I've done a lot of that stuff for a long time. So I do kind of see it as fairly black and white. I'm going to get into it. That's what this episode is about because again, this is a very hotly debated issue. On the one side, you have the parents whose kids have cut them off, and they're saying, honestly, I feel like they're saying some fairly outrageous things sometimes, like you owe your parents. Your parents did all this stuff for you as a child, and so you owe them. And there was a lady who went pretty viral on TikTok, this older lady, and she's like, you owe your parents. They did stuff for you. You owe them. So, like, that was one video that was really quite central to the whole thing. That was very polarizing, very polarizing thing. But that side of the aisle also claimed that it's just an internet trend to cut off your parents, which I think is pretty outrageous as well. I'm already showing my hand here. I'm already kind of giving you a peek about where I sort of stand on this issue. And we have to keep in mind, almost nothing is black and white. There's going to be gray areas with just about everything. And this thing is extremely nuanced as well. I don't want to oversimplify it. I don't want to be reductive about it. But there is one major differentiator in this whole thing that I kind of go by, that I kind of look at. But anyways, we're going to talk about cutting tie, when you're an adult and you cut ties with your parents as an adult. Pretty common, pretty common thing these days. And I'll get into that, but I want to cover a couple of other things first before I break a lot of that down. I am actually recording this during the month of June, which, as some people know, is Men's Mental Health Month. I understand that June is known for something else as well. I'm sitting here thinking, like, and I know the people in that camp would want me to talk about it, but by God, we do talk about it. We talk about it all the time, to the point that it's just old. We've talked about it. It's been talked about. But what does not get talked about enough? Men's mental health. And so to talk about that, because I want to touch on that. It's always been my desire to do more for men's mental health and masculinity in general, especially as of late in recent months and years, especially in my own practice. I do a lot of work with teenagers, mostly teen boys, young men as well. And I've worked with young men and boys for a long time. With each passing year, I am more and more concerned about them. I'm concerned about the girls as well. Like, I worry about girls in social media. I worry about girls and comparisons. I worry about girls and the content they consume, um, and that type of stuff. But when I work with teenagers, for the most part, the girls are often, for the most part, like doing better. That's not to say they don't have the struggles. They absolutely do. It's a hard time to be a kid. I mean, a side note, I am insanely grateful. I am not a teenager these days. Holy shit, people. Like, no bueno, dude. Man, I was a 90s kid. Like, oh, what a time to be alive. What a time to be a teenager. I lucked out. That was glorious. Honestly, I said this in a TikTok video. The worst part about growing up in the 90s, being a 90s teenager, is growing up and realizing um, that I didn't appreciate how good I had it at the time. And here we are, all these years later, and boys, young men, man, they are not doing well. The suicide rate amongst males continues to be astronomically high, continues to be largely ignored by the therapy community in general. I can't get through a single episode. That's not true. I've gone through a couple, but getting through an episode without bad mouthing other therapists who, frankly, don't give a shit that boys and men are 4 times more likely to end their lives. Fortunately, I I went to a 2-day mental health conference this last week, and my back still hurts from carrying that heavy backpack and sitting in those uncomfortable chairs. But the pendulum is starting to swing a little bit. There's a noticeable change in the tone in the therapy community, in the mental health community. Thank God. Actually, one of the presenters, she was like calling out EMDR, and I was like, "Fucking finally, finally, somebody is raising the concerns about EMDR." Because on the surface, I'm going to go off on a tangent just for a second. I might do a whole freaking episode on EMDR and why we have problems with EMDR. Okay, because on the surface, from the outside looking in, you might hear that EMDR is the perfect therapy method, and then it works for every population and every issue. That is not true. But the EMDR therapists like to talk about it like it is the end all be all of therapy. It is not. And the only reason they actually believe that is because of aggressive marketing. It's because the EMDR people made a absolute mountain of money selling these certificates and these seminars to learn how to do EMDR. And they just have had incredible marketing. And finally, like other people are seeing the issues with it. Other people are seeing the holes in it. What's bizarre, by the way, is I will hear EMDR therapists accuse other therapy camps like internal family systems and like call them a cult, and it's like, careful who you call a cult. EMDR as cultish as it can be. EMDR is so cultish. They are so cultish. Anyways, sorry. I know I tend to go off, but I attend the 2-day conference and a little bit better conversations around suicide and how it impacts men and boys, and a little less diminishing of boys and men. And I'm glad to see that because they desperately need help. After going through, who knows, my millionth existential crisis, I feel very strongly about moving in a direction where I provide better support for boys and men. So I started a new podcast. It's called The Forge, a podcast about masculinity. Currently, frankly, it is only on Spotify, but I will put it in the I'll put the link in the description. So if you're a guy or you want to support guys, I mean anybody can listen to it. Obviously, I can't stop anybody from listening or not listening to it. Go listen to The Forge on Spotify. Short form episodes specifically directed to helping boys and men. So yeah, in honor of Men's Mental Health Month, I was like, I'm doing this, man. I'm doing this, and I'm working on some other stuff too on the side that I hope will um, help bring some other things to fruition in the future. As a man, I'm learning to be disciplined. It's been a very, very important thing for me, but I feel good about this direction. Again, I'm recording this mid June. Um, Man, I get seasonal depression in the summer. I know there are a lot of other people out there. Most people are surprised to hear me say this. You get seasonal depression in the summer? Yes, badly. The truth is, I I struggle with the heat. A very low tolerance for hotter temperatures. This year I'm really trying to dedicate myself to some projects. I'm just trying to keep myself busy here. So hopefully it works. Hopefully it works. So stay tuned. Hopefully you'll give me a follow here, subscription or whatever, and I'm sure you'll hear all about it. We'll see how the summer depression goes this year. Kicked my ever loving ass last year. It was brutal last year, but I'm determined to do some things different. We'll see how it goes. Okay, let's get into this topic, man. Let's talk about adults who are cutting off their aging parents. The parent population that we're mostly talking about is the baby boomer generation. The baby boomer parents are the ones who are getting cut off in large numbers. There are a lot of negative sentiments about the baby boomer generation, a lot of negative sentiments. And frankly, I tend to side with a lot of them. I was raised mostly by the baby boomer generation, parents. My mom was older. My mom was the tail end of the generation before. I think it was the silent generation. I think she was tail end of the silent generation. But my dad was a boomer. The baby boomers were my teachers, the people at church, all the other adults around in my life. And frankly, the men especially, I found to be extremely difficult to deal with. Fortunately, my mother was not one of those crazy boomer moms. Like, like there's a fun rabbit hole. I mean, to me, it's an amusing rabbit hole, but also kind of a crazy one. It has to do with baby boomers collecting china, dishes, right? Like these women, man, these baby boomer women, they will like a lot of them will have this huge fucking curio cabinet just in the house somewhere filled with these fucking old dishes. Um, a lot of these boomer moms, they just leave the dishes in there. They're just to be looked at. They're not to be used. Probably shouldn't anyways, because a lot of them were lead paint was used to paint a lot of them, and so you probably shouldn't be eating off them anyways. And as a lot of these boomers are passing away, they're handing down these quote unquote family heirlooms. And the children are like, this is worthless junk. You can't even give it away to like a thrift store. The thrift store's like, don't bring that garbage here. And it's funny, like this is a little bit of a rabbit hole because like a lot of these boomer parents are like, what do you mean you don't want this giant curio cabinet with these dishes sitting in your house for the rest of your life? It's crazy. Frankly, it's like, yeah, I think you ate off those lead painted dishes too many times. I think I would want that. But apparently, it's causing major rifts in a lot of these families where parents are trying to hand down this quote unquote family heirloom giant curio cabinet filled with dishes, and the kids don't want them. They're just like, they just take them to the dumpster. Um, right? Or like one of those rage rooms where you smash them. That's a good use for those things. Just take them to a rage room and just fucking smash them. So I have personally noticed, and professionally, I've noticed baby boomer generation, for reasons I don't entirely understand, seem to be a lot more selfish, a lot more self-centered. Seems like the previous generations, when they were raising children, they were kind of conscientious of the fact that I'm an adult, they're a child, I need a parent. They're kids, they're needy, they can't do much for themselves. I have to take the role of the parent, at least to a certain degree. The major disruptor, by the way, in all of that was World War I and World War II and the Great Depression. That really upended parenting. The Industrial Revolution, that upended parenting and fathering specifically. So I honestly think that the baby boomer generation being raised, I think they experienced probably more neglect. And so therefore they just remained maybe kind of selfish. So the main difference that I see, frankly, with the boomers is that, well, and again, this is not just exclusive to the boomers. They seem to have started this trend, though. You treated the children like you exist for me, right? You're supposed to, like, boomers would have children and they expected to be their children's priority for the rest of their lives, right? If their children aren't making them a priority, they're very unhappy about it. Now, as a therapist, to me, that's really backwards. It's extremely backwards way to go about parenting. Okay, your kids don't exist to serve or please you. So, like, I'll see some of these people online where they're like, yeah, like I'm keeping like people make videos and they'll say, I'm keeping track of how long it takes before my boomer mom asks me how I'm doing, asks me about me. Like people are going months and months and months. Some people are like, I'm waiting to see if my boomer parents waiting to see how long it takes before they ask me about my kids, aka their grandkids. Again, some of these people they're reporting like, yeah, it's been months. I haven't brought the kids up, and I'm just waiting for them to bring up my kids, and it's been months, and it still hasn't happened. So again, you got the boomer generation who they're sending a clear message to their kids. You don't exist. You exist for my purposes. You exist to please me. You owe me. Me, 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 me. Now, again, as a therapist, I've just found that this is a highly, highly problematic approach to parenting and relationships. Putting kids at an automatic deficit when they have absolutely no way to fend for themselves, take care of themselves. Some of these boomer parents too. It's like what? What's the problem? You didn't die. Like I literally, some of them, they're like, what? You didn't die. Like the only parenting requisite was to keep their kids alive. I think as a generation too, like the baby boomers had more kids drown, right, than basically any other generation. They just throw their kids in the pool and walk away, right? Like, well, it wasn't my fault, right? And and then, right, like, okay, what is going on here? But to me, I'm realizing that this is the major differentiator. One of the major differentiators between a good parent, healthy parent versus, the opposite. And that is, do the parents treat the kids? How do the parents treat the kids? Do the parents regard the kids as, you exist for me. You exist to please me. You exist to do what I want you to do. You exist to care about me. So it's not uncommon to see boomers online talking about this openly, unapologetically too. They're like, yeah, what's the problem? Can't explain it to them. They don't listen. Too much lead poisoning from those goddamn dishes, in the, in the curio cabinet. Honestly though, seriously, like people will ask, what's wrong with the boomers? What is wrong with baby boomers? And I'm like, honestly, lead poisoning, I think is part of the problem. Like there was a time when gasoline had lead in it, and then when your car would burn the gas, like lead particles would come out of your exhaust pipe, and just all the cars were pumping lead into the air. If you're old enough, if you're old like I am, you remember a time when, right, the gas station would say unleaded fuel only to your car, right? Like your car would say unleaded fuel only. You don't see that anymore because they took lead out of gasoline like a long time ago. It's not a problem anymore. One of the few things the government actually fixed. Regardless, I think it still impacted the boomers. Their brains just don't seem to work very well sometimes. I mean, let's be honest. I also think that they had a lot of head injuries, especially the men. It's just they would use their head as a battering ram. They would break bottles with their heads. They would do things with their heads. Break. Oh, I need this coconut broken open. Let me use my melon. It's just like a whole generation of traumatic brain injuries. It seems like. So honestly, between the lead poisoning, right, and the head injuries, I think we're putting two and two together here. So no, I don't agree that people cutting off their adult parents is an internet trend. So here's how I see it. If you were a good parent, if you really were a good parent, maybe I need to distinguish my definition of a good parent versus not a good parent. Pretty basic. I'll get there. I'll get back to that. But if you were actually a good parent, there's no way your kids would cut you off for internet clout. So like if internet clout holds more water than your relationship, you done fucked up as a parent. I'm just saying. I refuse to believe this notion that you were an amazing parent and they cut you off anyways. Like, that's not a thing. Kids are like, they grow up desperate for parental involvement, parental approval, parental connection. Like, we are hardwired for that. If that connection is positive or strong, you're not going to cut them off just so you can brag about it on the internet. I mean, for argument's sake, even if you just wanted to brag about it on the internet, I mean, you can just tell people that you did it without actually cutting them off. Nobody would know the difference. But I think the other side of that argument is that people or even therapists are arguing that your parents, right, are saying, oh, your parents are toxic, you should cut them off. Now, for the record, as someone who does a lot of work with kids and parenting and families, I have advocated to protect, preserve, and strengthen parent-child relationships that were seriously in the toilet. Sometimes it works out pretty good. Sometimes it doesn't. Either way, to me, it's the right thing to do. I've never encouraged a client to cut off their parents, ever, not once. Frankly, that's not my place. It's not the place of a therapist. If you have a therapist that tells you that you should cut off a parent, you might need a new therapist. But, like, seriously, if you had a really strong bond with your parents, they were a great parent, they were there for you, they supported you, they raised you, they did all this stuff, um, and you just had really good parents. You had a good relationship with those parents. And then you come across some therapist that's on the internet is like, your parents are toxic and you should cut them off. Like, you're not going to do that. You're going to be like, yeah, screw you. I love my parents. My life is better because of my parents. Yeah. What terrible advice. Moving on, right? In my book, the only way that someone would be willing to do that as an adult, right? As an adult, willing to cut off their parents as if their parents had usually made some major mistakes. Now, again, there is a nuance here. There is kind of a subculture aspect here. I honestly don't want to get into it. I really don't. But I think there are some aspects where it's like, oh, because I see this with the wokeism side of things. I'm just gonna touch on it. Here we go. Where, like, because wokeism has polluted our children's minds, frankly. And like, I'll get teenagers that come into my office and they're like, I'm angry at so and so because they didn't accept this thing about me. And I'm like, kid, nobody's required to do that. That's not a thing. People have a right to feel how they feel. They're not required to openly accept you. As long as you accept yourself, who cares, right? So I can see that side of things, like driving a wedge between parents, right? I mean, we get these reports of school teachers or school counselors who are like transitioning kids' gender behind the parents' back. That's, to me, that is really heinous and evil thing to do. That is horrible. I do not support that in the slightest. So I would say that is kind of the exception. But we're talking about kids here. But what I'm talking about is adults. When adults cut off their adult parents, I don't think full grown adults who are married with kids or whatever are like, oh, I have such a good relationship with my parents. And they watch a couple videos of therapists being like, your parents are toxic and you should cut them off. Are like, yeah, screw you, mom and dad. I'm out of here. I'm, I think that's bullshit. I'm not buying it. So to me, there is like really like one major criteria for good parents and good parenting. And I've heard this from the people who have cut off their parents, and it's accountability, right? Like these people have taken these concerns of their parents, like, man, you really did some stuff that was really harmful to me. And the parents just make excuses or they dismiss it or you're too sensitive instead of taking accountability, right? A good parent says, you're right. I made mistakes. I know it hurt you. I was going through some stuff. That's not an excuse. I'm really sorry. If I could go back, I would do it. I would do it differently. It's my bad. You're right. You're right. I'm sorry, right? That one simple, tiny act, that just that one thing would preserve dozens, if not hundreds, maybe even thousands of these relationships that are being cut off. it's the parents' refusal to take any accountability that is basically finalizing the deal and having them be like, no, I'm done. I'm done with this crap. Really, it's like accountability is like the biggest differentiator between a good parent and a bad parent. Like, oh, I screwed up. I need to own up to it. I need to tell my kid that I'm sorry, right? And that I need to do better. Like just that one thing will just strengthen a relationship between a parent and a child. I mean, big time. Make it really super strong. Because parents who take accountability are just going to make better parenting decisions because like they're questioning, right? Maybe I need to do something better. Maybe I need to do something different. The non-accountability parents are like, "Nope, I'm fine. Nope, I don't need to do anything different." And it's frankly, it's the parents that go to like absurd, like truly absurd lengths to avoid taking any degree of accountability. Those are the ones that it's like the relationship is going to be super duper weak. The relationship is going to be on super thin ice. Parenting's hard, man. It's really hard. Hardest thing you'll ever do. You're going to screw up. Like people will say to me like, I'm really afraid to screw up my kids. And I'm like, oh, don't worry. Don't worry. You absolutely will. Um, the difference is you just have to take accountability. Like apologize and then correct. That's what you do. Don't hit them. Don't sexually abuse them. Right. Manage your emotions. Right. Get control of over your anger. Right. Foster realistic expectations. But most importantly, okay, take accountability. Apologize where you need to apologize. So again, these seem to be the biggest differentiators between the adults who are cutting off their adult parents and the ones who are not. I think there's more of them doing it though because yeah, they see other people online doing it because it's scary. It's scary to be like, man. I mean, like there are situations where your parent is so bad for you, or even other family members are so bad for you. It's just like I can't conceivably keep a relationship with this person. They're a nightmare to deal with. But it's hard and it's scary, right? Because there's always those people in that camp. So the camp of you should never, ever, ever cut off your parents are usually the parents who are getting cut off. They're the ones over here that it's like, oh, but that's your mother. How could you do that to your mother? I mean, they're your family. Family's different. So my take on that is that yeah, family is different. Actually, a higher standard should be expected for family. You as a parent should be held to a higher standard, right? So a lot of these older adults, boomers who are being cut off, they hold their kids to a standard they don't even hold themselves to. So yeah, I agree. It's like, yeah, your family, which means yeah, you need to hold yourself to a higher standard. But it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying to cut your parents off. That's not something that's easily done. As a something I promise, I to me, people will go back and forth in their mind over and over and over again whether or not they did the right thing. They're tormented by it. They're not like, oh, that sounds fun. I'm going to do it because other people on the internet said so. I, I I'm not buying it. To me, that's bullshit. The last point I want to make on this, and I'm going to wrap this up. Honestly, there's so many nuances, there's so many points. We just keep going and going. I'm just trying to hit on the main ones that are in my mind, at least. For years, I have been audience to abusive family cycles. I strongly dislike them. I hate child abuse. I hate it. I disagree that we should just go along and with bad family relationships, bad family cycles, enabling harmful, destructive, or abusive family members. I'm tired of watching abuse cycles take place. I'm tired of them seeing going uninterrupted. Um, in my mind, a lot of these people who are cutting off their adult parents are trying to be a cycle breaker, hopefully. I think a lot of them are. I really do. I think a lot of them are saying, you know what, I'm going to be a cycle breaker. I'm not going to carry on the family tradition. I'm just carrying on these super harmful and destructive parent relationships. I'm done with it. That honestly, it takes a lot of courage, man. It takes balls to do that. Um, and I am just not a fan of just carrying on the family tradition of seeing our horrible abusive, toxic relationships through. It's like, honestly, like if you do, and I hate this word because it's overused, I don't have a better one, but if you do have toxic parents, it's like they don't love you. They subsist on control. That's it. Right? And I disagree. Like this isn't love. I think our relationships need to subsist on love, not control, not expectations, not disappointment or guilt, right? It's like, what are we doing, right? And so no, I don't. Yeah, I'm fairly firm on this side. I don't personally believe that anybody out there is cutting off their adult parents because their adult parents were amazing parents. Um, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. But again, I'm always trying to improve parent-child relationships. When I do so, I mean, I will pull parents in all the time and I will hold them accountable and see what they do with it. Can they take Sorry, I got cut off there. Can they take accountability or not? Pretty simple. I've held a lot of parents' feet to the fire. A lot. A lot of times these days, too, kids have bad relationships with their dads. I know men need to be better. I want to help them be better. But, like, if I see a dad who I think is really failing badly, I will drag that dude in and hold him accountable, hold his feet to the fire. I mean, I honestly kind of enjoy it. Maybe I shouldn't. But, anyways, yeah. And sometimes the dads do great with it, sometimes they don't. It just depends. It just depends. So, anyways, that's just sort of my thoughts and feelings on this topic. So thanks for listening. Be sure to give us a follow. Go check out The Forge. Go check out my new podcast for men. If you're a dude, please go listen to it. I made it for you. So thanks again for being here. At this point, I'm recording Mind Over Me every other week. That's what I have time for right now. So it's not as high as a priority as it was, but here we are. So once again, thanks for being here. Help me grow my audience. I hope this was helpful. We'll see you next time. And remember, you must do hard things.